What's up guys, it's Nate. It's GoPro time again. Here's a picture of a dog. We're gonna do kind of a vintage filmic feeling look on this edit. I'm gonna work the same way as I did the last video with the guitar. I'm gonna work backwards and show you what we got. Okay, I'm gonna leave the basics about where they were because you can see this. And looking at it right away, you'll notice that it's very yellow. And so what I did here is the exposure was a little down on this shot, so I pulled it up to 4/10 of a stop. Contrast I ran up pretty hot, but I actually did that afterwards, so let's leave that low for now. Same as usual, I'm going to take my highlights and push them down. My shadows I left down here, my whites left alone, and my blacks I actually dug in just a little bit to give some richness to the bottom end of this. Clarity's way up, and for an image like this, that's a questionable thing. You have two choices here. You can favor lower clarity, and that's going to get you closer to filmic look, but you may find that filmic look doesn't work for your shot, and in this case that's what I found. It's not that it was uninteresting, but the goal, and I should make this perfectly clear, your goal would be to achieve the best look possible for your individual photograph. In this case, true to filmic, a little more vintage. It didn't quite feel right, so pushing it into that hipstamatic Instagram neo-retro exaggerated vintage feels better for this shot, and so that's what we're going to stick with. So I have the clarity up around 50, and we'll come back to that. So now we have kind of a baseline setup. Moving past the basics tab to our tone curve tab. I did something very, very similar to what I did in the last image. I lifted our shadows just a touch to soften them up. I've also got just a touch of a dip in the mids and just a touch of a bump in the high mids and low mids, or shadows and highlights. No reason for that other than it looked great. In my colors, you can see when I switch this on, the image goes from being very yellow and washy to feeling a lot closer to natural. So what I did here, didn't touch any of the hues. Saturation, I pulled some orange and yellow out of it. For obvious reasons. I pulled a little bit of aqua out of it because most of what was coming in on the window, or from the window, on the window frame, on the reflection of her nose, and in her fur, was in that aqua range, and so I pulled some of that out. Luminance, orange came down, yellow went up. No reason other than it felt right. Green, I pulled down just a touch because this tree was kind of eaten into my image. And aqua I pulled down yet again so that we didn't have a really, really hot spot here, and I could also take back a little bit of my real estate in the highlights near the window frames. Moving on to detail. I sharpened this image a lot. There's no reason not to. So whatever. In the lens corrections panel, I did let it straighten the image out. I let it remove chromatic aberration. I might have had a little bit along some of these dark lines hitting the bright spots on the shadows, but I didn't notice a whole ton of CA in the image. Vignette. For this vignette, I chose a light to medium vignette, midpoint set in further than usual, feather set lower than usual. It feels a little choppy, and for a vintage shot, or a vintage inspired shot, I think that works better. Camera calibration tab, as usual, no need to mess with. Okay, moving back to the basics. I'm going to go ahead and dump in the contrast that we had. And I'm going to add a little bit of vibrance and steal a lot of saturation back to about where it was. And that's getting us closer to a more retro mod color scheme. So right now the image doesn't look bad at all. What I did from here, I split toned it, and I love this treatment. I like this color combination to split tone. I have in my highlights, I have this greenish lime, kind of scary bright green color, which you don't really notice as much when it's pulled down. It adds a little bit of green here, and you can see kind of a green wash in general, but it's not a huge wash. In the lowlights, I have just full-on pink, 297 pink, 78 green, if you want to try those numbers on something that you shot. I'm favoring the low side here. Down here it feels a little bit too pink, but just balancing in a hint of that green takes the whole thing to this nice little orange with these soft, dusty, violet touches. I think that's a really, really cool look. My basic tab is done. Basically everything is done except this, our crowning piece. This is important. All I did here, basically, I took a burn brush, I burned in a little bit of sealing on this and got rid of some of the brighter top half of the image, which you can really see the line for right there, but it just doesn't bother me. Here I dusted around basically the rest of everything that isn't the dog, and I darkened the backside of the dog just a touch. I lifted my eyeball, literally just an eyeball. There's Terminator dog, that's pretty cool. And then you'll notice this line of black that runs down here and then through the face, I darkened that line of black, just letting that pop a little bit harder on the face so that you get a little bit more contrast in the face, and it contrasts the lightened lifted eyeball very, very nicely and gives you this very deliberate look to the eye. So basically that's it. You guys know the drill. Comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. Let me know how it looks on your display as usual. And give me suggestions, man. I want to shoot a bunch of these videos. I really enjoy making these. I feel like they could be really helpful for some of you guys, especially the guys that are just starting out. Anyway, comment, like, subscribe. Let me know what you think. I appreciate you guys watching, and I'll be making more of them. See you later.